The Atlantic Ocean was restless that evening, its waves crashing harder than usual against the quiet shores of a small fishing town in Virginia. The sky burned orange as the sun dipped low, casting golden light over the worn wooden pier where 27-year-old Caleb Turner sat mending his torn fishing net. Caleb was known around town as the quiet struggler. After losing his father in a boating accident years ago, he had taken over the tiny shack they once called a seafood business. Bills stacked up faster than fish in his net, and some nights he went to bed with more worries than hope. But despite his poverty, Caleb carried something many wealthy men lacked, a heart that moved before his mind could calculate risk. That evening, the beach was unusually crowded with tourists. Among them was a young woman who clearly didn't belong to the sleepy town. She had long sun-kissed hair, oversized sunglasses, and an effortless confidence that spoke of a life far from hardship. Her name was Amelia Brooks, visiting from California. She had insisted on taking a break from her tightly scheduled, security-guarded life to experience something real. Her father, one of California's most powerful tech millionaires, thought Virginia's coast would be quiet enough. He never imagined what would happen next. As the tide grew stronger, lifeguards began waving red flags, warning swimmers to return to shore. Most listened. Amelia didn't. She had always been adventurous, slightly rebellious against the protective cage of wealth that surrounded her. Laughing as the water splashed against her shoulders, she swam farther out, unaware of the dangerous undercurrent forming beneath her. Caleb noticed first. Years of fishing had trained his eyes to read the ocean like a book. He saw the shift in the waves, the subtle pull of the current dragging sideways instead of back. Then he saw her, arms flailing for just a second too long. It wasn't playful. It was panic. Without thinking, Caleb dropped his net and sprinted across the sand. People on the shore began shouting, some pulling out their phones, others frozen in shock. The lifeguard station was momentarily empty, the guards helping a child near the dunes. Every second mattered. Caleb dove into the water. The cold Atlantic hit him like a wall, but he pushed through it, fighting against the rip current. Amelia had disappeared beneath a crashing wave. When she resurfaced, she gasped desperately, swallowing seawater. Her eyes met Caleb's for a split second, eyes filled not with wealth or pride, but with raw fear. "I've got you!" Caleb shouted over the roar of the ocean. She struggled instinctively, grabbing onto him in panic, nearly pulling them both under. Caleb remembered his father's old lessons: when saving someone, stay calm even if they can't. He locked one arm around her from behind, keeping her chin above water, and kicked hard, angling sideways to escape the current instead of fighting it head-on. It felt like hours, though it was only minutes. His muscles burned. Salt stung his eyes. But finally, a wave carried them close enough for others to rush in and help drag them onto the sand. Amelia lay motionless, coughing weakly. Caleb knelt beside her, pressing gently on her back until she expelled the water from her lungs. A crowd formed, murmuring anxiously. Someone called 911. Sirens echoed in the distance. Then she opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was Caleb, soaked, exhausted, breathing heavily, sand clinging to his arms. He looked more scared than she did. "You're safe," he said quietly. She tried to speak but could only whisper, "Thank you." Paramedics arrived and wrapped her in a thermal blanket. Moments later, black SUVs pulled up near the beach, tires skidding slightly in the sand. Men in suits stepped out quickly, scanning the area. The crowd parted as if sensing authority. Caleb stepped back, confused. One of the suited men rushed toward Amelia. "Miss Brooks. Are you okay?" Caleb froze. Brooks. As in Daniel Brooks, the billionaire tech mogul constantly featured on financial news. Within minutes, the beach transformed from a quiet tourist spot into a scene of controlled chaos. Security personnel questioned witnesses. Cameras flashed. Someone whispered, "That's Daniel Brooks' daughter." Caleb felt out of place in his faded t-shirt and torn shorts. He started to slip away quietly, not wanting attention. He had only done what anyone should do. But Amelia grabbed his wrist before he could leave. "Don't go," she said softly. Her grip was weak but determined. Security looked uneasy but allowed him to stay. An hour later, after doctors confirmed she was stable, a helicopter landed on the beach. Daniel Brooks himself stepped out, his expression a mixture of fury and fear. The powerful businessman who commanded billion-dollar deals looked like nothing more than a terrified father. He rushed to Amelia, embracing her tightly. "You scared me to death." She pulled back slightly and pointed toward Caleb. "He saved me." Daniel turned, eyes scanning Caleb from head to toe. For a moment, there was silence. The contrast was almost cinematic, the billionaire in an expensive tailored suit and the struggling fisherman with salt still drying on his skin. Daniel walked toward him slowly. "You risked your life for my daughter." Caleb shrugged awkwardly. "Anyone would have." Daniel knew that wasn't true. Many had watched. Only one had jumped. "What do you do, son?" Daniel asked. "I fish." "Or?" "I try to," Caleb replied honestly. That night, while Amelia was flown back to a private hospital for observation, Caleb returned to his small shack, thinking the story would end there. He had no idea that it was just beginning. The next morning, black SUVs appeared outside his weathered home. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Caleb stepped outside, nervous. Amelia stepped out of one of the vehicles, looking healthier but still pale. She wore simple jeans and a hoodie, no glamour, no spotlight. "I wanted to thank you properly," she said. Caleb scratched the back of his head. "You already did." She smiled. "Not enough." Over the following days, Amelia insisted on staying in Virginia longer than planned. She visited Caleb's seafood shack and saw firsthand how he struggled to keep it afloat. Broken equipment. Overdue notices. A leaking roof. "You saved my life," she said one evening as they watched the sunset from the pier. "Let me help save yours." Caleb hesitated. Pride warred with practicality. But Amelia's offer wasn't charity, it was partnership. She proposed investing in his business, turning it into a sustainable seafood brand that would supply high-end restaurants across the East Coast. She believed in his knowledge of the ocean, his authenticity, his integrity. Daniel Brooks initially objected. But after investigating Caleb's background and seeing the genuine bond forming between them, he agreed, with one condition: Caleb would remain in control of operations. Months later, the tiny shack transformed into a thriving company called Turner Tides. Caleb hired local fishermen, boosting the town's economy. News outlets picked up the story, the poor Virginia fisherman who saved a millionaire's daughter and unknowingly changed both their lives. But the real story wasn't about money. It was about courage. About how one selfless decision, made in seconds, can rewrite destiny. Caleb never jumped into the ocean expecting reward. He jumped because someone needed help. And that's the lesson hidden in every wave of this story: your circumstances do not define your value. Your actions do. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that kindness and bravery still exist in this world, make sure to subscribe to this channel and join our growing community. Because here, we share stories that remind us that even the smallest act of courage can create the biggest tides of change.